What's up? What's up? What's up? If you own a business, if you're an entrepreneur and creative entrepreneur, a coach, consultant, videographer, photographer, designer, but you own a creative business, you're self-employed. I'd love for you to leave a comment below based on what I'm going to say here today, and let me know, or send me a message. I'm just purely flat out, almost a research type of video, depending on how many people listen to this, because I have some hypotheses, having been in business really since about 2004 and seeing different transitions happen where I saw basically versions of Blockbuster happen, where Blockbuster didn't want to pivot, shift, go with the times, whatever, and they went out of business. So observing that there's always been people struggling, like always. There's always, as long as I've been looking at forums and Facebook groups and video, whatever that's out there where people are conjugating communities and talking about things. Um, there has always been people that have struggled. There's the people that no matter what haven't been able to figure out how to get business to work, and they've always struggled. Then you've gotten the people that um kind of, what I found when I first started is like I was in the back of like this meeting, for videographers back in the day. And I was getting $500 for projects. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just trying to soak up everything and learn. Like, I'm the low man on the totem pole. Nobody cared about what I was doing or who I was. I'm just the young whippersnapper sitting in the back, hungry and ready to learn. And within a few years, I'm speaking at these same events where I was getting $500. Nobody knew who I was or what I was doing, but I was young and hungry. And I don't think it's just young. I mean, I think nowadays we're seeing people who are of all ages, literally pretty much all ages, who are finding an excitement and an enthusiasm to embrace technology, embrace AI, embrace these things that are out there, and make pivots and make shifts. It's all ages. Now, typically, the younger, the more likely they have that drive a little bit more easily accessible because they haven't maybe had any failures, they haven't had much drama, they haven't had much challenge, and they're just like, yeah, who, blah, 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 blah. And that's how I was, whatever that just meant. But anyways, um, but I saw people who had been in business a long time who, maybe for the first 3 to 5 years, they really did work hard and they were excited and they were hungry and, they got things to work, and then they were able to coast. And they didn't have to innovate. Maybe there weren't many technological changes. And then when I got in 2006, really, I think SD was there for a year or two, maybe 3 max, and then HD cameras came on board, which were still video cameras, just higher quality, and then DSLRs came on, and I got the first 5D Mark II, and, it was a game changer for my career, and I never fully, because I got out of the tech game probably about 2011, 2012, and stopped paying attention. I mean, I was still honestly getting paid very well to use cameras from 2009 and 10 in 2017. Um, and yet there were other people who were young and were, the interesting thing is they were just getting on slightly better versions of the same things that I was on. It wasn't like it was the night and day. It wasn't like I'm still trying to shoot standard def when pretty much no one is and they're all wanting HD. It was just there was 1080 to 4K. Um, but the actual huge shifts in the industry right now, um, like like blockbuster sized things are happening on steroids. Um, and so no longer, like, if there's a girl who got into banking and she's 25, she's not going to be able to just go through the motions of that job for the next 40 years and then retire. Like, it's just not happening. Like that kind of stuff. Like, if I'm 37, I've gotten to still go through a pretty large chunk of life without, I've been experienced some bigger changes, but not, I don't think, anything of what we're really seeing on a global scale right now with AI and technology, and how rapidly, like, you're thinking, I'm good, this is rocking and this is rolling. And 3 weeks later, everything you had is like changing, and the level of the energy that people are having to have to learn, unlearn, relearn, learn, unlearn, relearn, and keep making these shifts and tweaks and adjustments. It's a lot of energy. It takes a lot to keep that going, because that's how a lot of people who have been able to coast for a long time are feeling. if you've been able to coast at something for any more than a few years, and it's been 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 years, um, it's an issue. It's a major issue because you can feel like starting over. And to the degree that you don't like what you do, starting over could feel really bad, like and almost impossible. And studying now trauma in the mind and how we kind of can create these invisible brick walls to move forward and take action and whatnot, um, it can feel impossible for some to overcome. And I've gotten experience in my own life, like the 18-year-old version of me with my couple buddies, and just like we're those like again young whippersnappers that are just like hungry and ready. We don't have any bills or responsibilities, and those kind of people are like you're going to have a hard time competing with people who have nothing to lose. Anybody who has cars, houses, materialistic things, like if you're focused right now more on not losing than you are winning, and there's somebody else there who has nothing to lose, like they don't care about any materialistic things, or they don't have anything like worth losing because they're like, well, I live in an apartment with three buddies, or their rent's $400 a month, and they're like, I could care less if I live here. I could live somewhere else, right? To the degree that somebody doesn't really like what they have, isn't content with what they have, it doesn't matter their age. Um, they're unstoppable. To the degree that you really care about what you have and you really don't want to lose what you have, um, again, focus is everything. So if our mind is more focused on not losing, yes, you want to win, but you're focused on not losing, right? Then you are focused on winning. And so a person who has nothing to lose is less focused on losing. Like they don't want to not lose because they want to lose. They want to lose what they have and they want to gain where they're going. A lot of people may want more than they have, but they don't want to lose what they got. And so in this day and age, I think that there are people because I can talk to so many people in a day and I'm still digging because I think that there are more people who are struggling than normal. I think the people who have been rocking and rolling for years and they're not changing anything, but they're driven. They're not typically complainers. When they're sparking up and going, well, I've had X amount of leads and they've been going up every year until last year or this year. And now, like, oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time doing blank. You see even wedding videographers. Oh my gosh, normally I'm booking 30, 40 weddings like they're going out of style. And now, I'm struggling to book 15 or 20. And these are people who are, again, not complainers, not like, not your typical person who would be on these forums saying things. That's more alarming. I think there's people untainted right now, like untouched, like the industry or what they're doing isn't fully being affected and they're quietly ignoring what's happening in the marketplace and they're able to. And I don't know how long that'll last. I would guess, in my heart from everything I'm looking at, like if you're in media, if you're in technology, if you're in advertising, if you're in videography, if you're in photography, if you're in these things, um, I mean, it might depend on who you specifically work with, but it's all getting disrupted. Like we're just business as usual. Um, I just think that the more we set ourselves up to recognize that business as usual indefinitely right now for most of the world, uh, is not happening. I mean, there's certain things that will go slightly untouched, for right now, like maybe the trash pickup services and somebody who's coming in to, maybe mow your grass or fix your plumbing. Like there are some things that I think that certain elements of technology will come in, but there'll still be a human being for the indefinite future who's going to show up and fix somebody's toilet, right? That's not changing. But if you're creating on the internet, and you're running advertising and marketing and creating content and videos. I mean, you're even seeing it in the wedding space where there's people who, are selling packages where they're just showing up with their camera and or their phone and they're just filming some footage and they're paying people, you see these threads of people like they're paying $1,500. There's no editing. They don't have any overhead or costs. It's not expensive. And so that person might be making better money at $1,500 than somebody trying to charge 5,000. And I think this, um, it's yeah, and Jeanette there, I want out of this. I'm not sure where you're coming from or what you've heard so far. So if you want to elaborate on that, let me know. But I think this is the thing is people who wanted into entrepreneurship and self-employment for the I believe lies that have been sold for honestly as long as I've been looking at the online internet marketing space, which is this idea of kind of passive money and passive income and work hard for a little bit, put this stuff in, and it's going to run on autopilot. Like it kind of worked in the past, depending on who you were and what you were selling and what you were doing. And now, like, there's just tons of people who aren't into what they're doing because they love it. They love business. They're like, I'm so excited about this. I love technology and I love learning. And this is just, oh my God, all this AI, this is so exciting. If you're of the like, this is scary and this is a nightmare, like, I'm not bearer of bad news because I want to help those people. Mental health matters. And for me, it's twofold because either we have to embrace we're not pumped about this, and that not pumped about this will destroy you and your mental health. I really believe that. Then we have to find a way to partner up and collaborate and work for and work with people who need certain skills from people, but you don't have to worry about the constant innovation and changing and tweaking. Like you'll still have to learn. I think that's another thing. Like some people, like there are going to be things where you will have to embrace something because if you don't, I don't know. Again, like I said, the person who's the wanting to go into banking right now, like I feel bad for certain people where these things have shelf lives. Like there's not going to be physical banks with tellers. Like my mom was a banker. My wife's mom's a banker. This idea that somebody's going to get into banking, they're going to be a teller at a bank for the next 40 years is just, I just don't believe with any bone in my body that's happening. And so we have to be willing to embrace, and to the degree that we cannot be as rigid. And this is a preaching session to myself as much as it is to anyone else out there, because I've gotten to experience being the person who was the disruptor, who was willing to embrace what was happening, not because I was like willing to embrace. It was like, that's where I came in at. You got to realize the people who I disrupted back in 2006, 2007, 2008, like those years when I was growing my video production company, it I wasn't attached to the past. Like there was nothing there for me to not embrace. Like I came in at what was new. And then there were people doing things that were old, and they were the ones not excited or enthusiastic about the new and about the technology and about the change and about the cameras, because they had been able to get into habits and patterns of doing things that it worked. They got to take care of their family. They made money. They were doing something that to a degree they still did love. But having to learn these new computers and new technology and new cameras and new gear and new lenses and new everything, like that was exhausting for them. And some did it because they were excited about it. They're like, this is exciting. And some did it because it's the only thing that they could do. And then others didn't, not because it would have kept them in business, but because they were just so exhausted. And some were able to get away with it. Maybe they were good enough with money, right? But for all those who haven't been good with money, who are in those situations, I'm scared for those people. And I want to continue to put things out there to direct people to what is the best way of accepting your situation and making a decision that is going to impact you and help you move forward and make progress. Because again, you look at something like Blockbuster, they were rigid. They were like, no way, right? I think there's things out there where they could have bought Netflix for like $50,000 or $500,000. There was a time where Netflix was in there like, oh, let's sell our business. And then, they didn't quite get the money that they wanted or whatever. And then even the Blockbusters were like, we're not doing it. And so, some of the clients I'm working with, I'm like, we got to talk to the people, because sometimes, and that's something I'm embracing even more right now as well, because there's an aspect, we can have something that we're like, if you hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk about being romantic, right? We're romantic with the product or the service, and things have changed. And being romantic with this thing, being excited about this thing that maybe the world, the industry, the marketplace doesn't want anymore. And if they don't want it, like just shoving it down their throat isn't going to work. And so, I'm finding that there's also something else happen. People who are 100% relying on say advertising and marketing and like direct advertising and direct marketing where there's not really, you're not building a brand. You're not maybe focused on relationships, but you're just focused on marketing and advertising. I think that is some of the people I'm seeing struggling as well, because um, a lot of the clients I have are getting work this year from repeat customers. And some of the sources they were using to drive cold audiences to their businesses um, are not working as well. They're not working as well. And then some of the clients that I have or friends that I have who are really like hardcore relationship based, they're doing well. They're like, again, they live in like a bubble right now where the fact that they're really hardcore on tap and on pulse with their clients, the relationships with them, what do they need? How can I help you? Like if they need to tweak some, adjust some things, they will, versus like, I have this service and it's worked every year. I don't know why it's not working right now. It's kind of like Blockbuster going, everybody wanted to go to the thing to rent the movies, but now they're not. Well, that's just keep, there's this phrase that I love, and it's heard from this guy: freshly squeezed lemonade or yellow water with sugar. So there's a lot of people, like it's the same thing technically. Now there's some people who are marketing something as freshly squeezed lemonade and their product is crap, but it's still sexier than people who it looks like yellow water with sugar. If you were given the option and the lemonades were identical, but one said that their things was yellow water with sugar and one said freshly squeezed lemonade, you'd probably pick the freshly squeezed lemonade one, right? And so the interesting thing is that there's no freshly squeezing lemonade for a Blockbuster. It doesn't matter how you keep packaging that. It's going to continue to lose, because what I'm finding is some people are still getting the clicks over to their site. They're just not getting the conversions. So what we don't know there is that people are looking for something, but what they're looking for right now may be different than what they were looking for in the past. So when they came before, they found the thing they wanted. And so they signed up, they booked a call, whatever. Now they're still on the surface, not quite sure, do they have what I want? And then if they go in and they can't find it, they're leaving. But now if you think it's because of how you're packaging what you sell, then you keep making adjustments and tweaks and all these things to what you're selling, when in fact, maybe people don't want what you're selling right now. They want something else. But if you don't know, if you don't talk to people, interact and see, well, what do they actually need? Because some people are willing to pivot. They're just not pivoting because they think what they have is still fine. They think what they still have, they think they're a Blockbuster and think people still want it until the delusion wears off and they're like, no one wants this anymore. People are nostalgic. There are people who would be excited about it, but it's a very small sliver relative. Even the people, I'm nostalgic about Blockbuster. And I got to be honest, if a Blockbuster opened up down the street, I really don't know that I'd go. Right? Like how many people who are nostalgic about Blockbuster would actually go to a Blockbuster still and regularly go on a daily, weekly, monthly basis with the things like Netflix and all these things out there? I think there's a ton of people who are nostalgic about those memories that still wouldn't go, they wouldn't be able to keep the place in business. That's the bottom line. And so, I saw a quote the other day about learning, unlearning, and relearning again. People who are going to succeed in 2024 and beyond are going to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn again over and over and over again. And for some people, that's not an exciting proposition. But I think the way the mind works, to the degree we can embrace that, and start shifting our mind and not expecting and not being rigid that things won't change. And so if you're in an industry or you're doing something right now, is it fact that everybody, like newspapers, how many newspapers on planet Earth are actually growing? Probably near none, right? Like you maybe could find an outlier, but what are they doing, right? And that means there's far more people. They're in the 99 percentile of, here's an industry that is just going downhill. It's like a Blockbuster industry, right? That kind of thing. And so that's where maybe you need to consider, how the hell do we get out and how do we do something else? How do we set up the next chapters of our life, right? Because there might be nothing you can really do on this, what could be considered a sinking ship. It's not a rebranding. It's not a shift. Like this, the product fundamentally will have to be different. It's not just rebrand, repackage, remarket the front end product, like the front end branding. And then once they get in, they're going to want this thing that they don't want anymore. But I think if you look at the wedding video industry or videography and media and these things, it's not that people aren't spending money. It's not that they don't want it. But there is somebody right now who's 25, 45, 55, who's going, I can hire people overseas for super cheap and I can do AI. And I can do what would have cost me $20,000 a month for $2,000 a month. And I can charge a competitive rate that gives the similar result or better. And they're embracing that. And then somebody else is not, and they can't keep their $20,000 or $30,000 a month overhead. And it's like I always use this analogy of like cutting grass with scissors. Like there maybe was a time where there was like ways to cut grass, like, but that's not valued. There was a guy, Steve Hardison has been a mentor of mine, and he talks about the value chain and like it's hard to get paid a lot of money to cut grass because a lot of people can cut grass, right? But if you take, like, he brought up like a Randy Johnson, who's a baseball player and throws, fastballs into whatever spot he pretty much wants to get and gets a ton of money for that. There's less people that know how to do that. Now, if you were cutting grass and you knew how to cut grass at like special designs, now not every human being, like normal person's going to want that, but there could be places that you could go that would value you cutting very special designs, and it would be able to be paid more because there's less people who can do it. So the more people who can do something, the less valuable that becomes. And so what is happening because of technology, I mean, when we got drone shots in 2012, we had to rent a helicopter, right? Now, I don't honestly remember when the DJIs and drones and the handheld remote controlled fancy things have all come out, and everybody with a pulse can grab one of these things off Amazon for a couple $100, and then probably get better footage for $400 off of a handheld drone thing that we got off of a helicopter that cost our clients a lot of money to rent. But yeah, I mean, the reality is not that we can't blame young people. We can't blame, like, it's just, we live in a world that evolves, that changes, that things tweak and adjust and become different. And I find that even from a mental standpoint for me and my mental health, I remember a time when I did videos and I would go into these weddings with this very, kind of planned, structured, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. And I would talk to the couple and they'd tell me this is going to happen at 9. Dad's going to come here and give me a card. At least that's what he's telling me. And so I would plan the song and I would plan the shots, and I just knew, okay, this is what I got to get. And I went in very rigid. I got to get these shots that are going to go with this song to be able to make this edit. And check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. I'm going through this day and like everything that's supposed to happen doesn't. And I'm like constantly depressed and disappointed and discouraged because I'm going into these things with a plan. I'm like, I'm going to plan, I'm going to prepare, I'm going to get all this stuff ready and it'll make a great edit. And I was like constantly disappointed because what you got to realize is this was live. This was real life. I wasn't making a wedding movie. It's not like I'm a Hallmark movie and I'm going in and everything can be, let's do that take again. Let's change that. We don't like those lines. Let's do that. And I'm directing the whole day and controlling every shot and every movement and every word. This is a live action thing. This isn't, it isn't controlled and scripted. And so to be so futile to think that I'm going to be able to go into a live action thing that I am not controlling like a director on a Hallmark movie, and I'm going to be able to have everything go how I want it to go, is as futile as thinking that you can control all your friends and family and the media and the society and president and the technology and the apps and the AI and all these things that continue to happen. And to the degree that you rigidly hold on to a past that does no longer exist will be to the degree that you suffer inside because you're wanting something that you cannot control. I had an image here that I found the other day, and it's a really powerful image. And I think that the more we you can kind of not see it, but anyways, I don't have an easy way to pull it up, but there's a head and it says out of my control on the outside. And it says the past, the future, the actions of others, the opinions of others, what happens around me, what other people think of me, the outcome of my efforts, how others take care of themselves. So again, out of my control, your past, the future, the actions of others, the opinions of others, what happens around me, what other people think of me, the outcome of my efforts, how others take care of themselves. All of that you cannot control. People would like to think they can, but to the degree that those things bother you, they will never stop bothering you because you can't control all that outside of you. So, what is in your control? Your boundaries, your thoughts and actions, which I will say, your thoughts, I don't think you actually, from all my studying, you actually control your default thoughts. You control the ability to pause, reflect, and course correct. So, to change your default thoughts will take intentional, conscious effort and practice for what could be months or years until your default way, if you default to being a negative, pessimistic human being who is always seeing the worst of everything, some of what we're talking about here, oh my God, this is horrible. I don't know. I'm not going to get through this. Like those default thoughts, you can't control those. They're going to keep popping up. And unless you get help or you be able to figure out how you can pause and reflect on what you've just thought, like when that negative thought percolates up, we're all screwed. Can you pause? Take a breath, calm your nervous system, right? Calm, regulate yourself, and go, is that a fact? Are we all screwed? Is it absolutely known that we are all screwed? And I would argue that it's not a fact. No one knows what's going to 100% happen, right? But I can almost guarantee, to the degree you believe that, your brain has cognitive biases, and you're going to be able to continue to see and look for proof everywhere, from friends, from family, society, media, Facebook, YouTube, videos, everything. The algorithm is going to feed you exactly more of what you believe. You go on YouTube. I had believed for so long, oh my God, I got to do these particular thumbnails and these titles and all these things. And there's truths to this, but my feed was filled with the same format of thumbnails on like every freaking video that I saw. And so I'm getting proof everywhere on YouTube that I've got to design these better thumbnails, right? I started clicking on some random things over the weekend, and before I know it, would you have it? My entire feed magically changed. And I started seeing people with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of views who had no thought put into their thumbnail, from what I could tell. And some of them are in their 50s, 60s, 30s, 20s, all sorts of people who are just being there, showing up and sharing. And so all of a sudden, my feed changed and I'm scrolling. And most of the things I'm seeing don't have thumbnail titles or anything on it. Whereas just days earlier, my entire feed's filled with things that were having me believe, oh gosh, Michael, you got to be better at these titles and these thumbnails and these things. And not, again, that those things can't be helpful. They can. But to believe it's a fact that the only people who get views or exposure or who are helping people or succeeding or whatever are this particular thing is a fallacy, because facts apply to everyone. That would mean that every video I see on YouTube, no matter where I search, no matter how I search, no matter what somebody shows me, that only views above 100,000 have super special, super highly intentional titles and thumbnails. They're the only people who get 100,000 views or more. When the fact of the matter is, that is 100% not true. So what else can you question of your thoughts that are not facts, which would mean this situation or this thing is affecting everybody in the exact identical same way across the board? And so your thoughts, we say they're in our control, but not your default. Only the ones after you have observed what you've default thought. And then you can control and consciously and intentionally start to think differently. The goals you set, they are in your control, right? What I give my energy to is your control, right? Again, you might default to giving energy to something that's probably not helpful, but you can pause, reflect, and course correct, right? You can shift your focus to something else. That will take practice, because your default way of operating is going to continue to happen on autopilot until you take conscious thought and you start to think and you pause, reflect, and course correct, and start shifting the focus, shifting the focus. Every time you're finding yourself getting triggered by something, like all this topic today, if that's got you anxious and scared and not feeling good, take a breath. If you're still listening to me, take a breath. Take a pause. right? Somebody's listening to this. This is the fact. Somebody's listening to this and excited about the prospect of what's happening in our world. And it's not just someone, it's many people. And there's also many people who are not excited. But it's not a fact that no one is excited and everybody is discouraged by it and no one's succeeding and no one's getting paid and no one's making money. That's not a fact. So if it were a fact, you could be at peace knowing that it's not working for you, it's not working for anybody. But the fact that it is working for someone means that we can find out what's working. There are people that have no money who are less stressed than people with a ton of money. There's people with a ton of money who aren't stressed. There's people with no money who are really stressed. So if you find the commonality there, it's not having or not having money that is making people stressed or not stressed. So what is it? It's typically our thoughts and beliefs about what's happening, about our bank account, about losing something, about something not working out. These things are causing us to get angry. Oh my gosh, I'll lose my house. Oh my God, I'll lose this. What will people think of me? And some of that isn't even conscious. Like some people say, I don't care what people think. And it's like, well, that plays out in how your body feels when certain things happen, right? Some things are just hardwired from a young age. If your parents really cared about what everybody thought and keep it up with the Joneses, and you saw that your entire upbringing from when you were born until when you moved out at 18, the probability is high. You do care what people think of you, right? Whether you actually consciously care or not may be another thing, but your body and your unconscious, subconscious mind will react when you think that someone's judging you and where you are. It has a high probability that's happening. So what else is in here? How I speak to myself, in your control, right? And how I handle challenges, the bottom one here, right? So my boundaries, my thoughts and actions, the goals I set, what I give my energy to, how I speak to myself, and how I handle challenges. Those are within your control. To the degree that I have a clip here. Let me pull this up real quick. See if I can pull it up. Because I want to share something, because I think that this, if I can find it, one second. History clips. So dang it. I'm not sure which one it is. What does I want to say? How I handle challenges. Anyways, I don't know where the clip is at. I might have to do another one here, but I hope it pops up into me. Anyways, but it's really important that we recognize what is in our control and what is not in our control. And to the degree that we are attempting to control things that we can't, is to the degree that we suffer mentally in our mind. Because if I need somebody outside of me to be a certain way, for me to be a certain way, for me to be happy, then that means I need them to change. I need the government to change. I need the economy to change. I need AI to go away. I need Blockbuster to come back. I need these things to happen. I need to not have this new camera, this new software, this new thing to come onto the marketplace, because now it's causing me to have to change. And I don't want to change. So I need you to change so I don't have to. I need you to be different so I don't have to. I need that to not have happened so I don't have to feel bad. And the problem is that is something that I've had to realize when I shifted to, like, back in the day when I was doing those weddings and I stopped the control aspect, because you have to recognize, again, I couldn't control what happened at a live event. So how much of us are trying to control things that are a live event, a live world, a live interaction, our relationships? People are uncontrollable in so many ways, right? Like how your wife or your significant other or your friend or whatever is going to react to you and your decisions and what you do. Like, you can't control that always. And so for me, when I finally said, you know what? And this is part of when my business took off. I went, you know what? I'm actually kind of becoming cookie cutter in what I'm creating here. And I said, I'm tired of constantly being disappointed. So one could argue now I became kind of apathetic and like, well, screw this, who cares? And I just became negative, right? Well, if I can't control these weddings, I'll just be depressed. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Instead, I pivoted. I shifted my perspective and said, you know what? I'm going to get what I get. I'm going to do what I do. Whatever happens, happens. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make the best dang thing that I can possibly create. But I'm going to tell people, you know what? I can't control whether your father's going to come. I mean, you can do your best and let him know, give him my number and all these things. But at the end of the day, if dad gets so enthusiastic and you told me there, he told me he's going to be there at 9, and all of a sudden he just didn't get the picture, and I get there at 8:30, but he showed up at 8. I mean, are you in that moment going to tell him, Dad, don't, my videographer's not here. You can't, I don't want to cry without my videographer, right? That might happen. Or in the moment of a live thing and the emotions are stirring and dad's there and you start crying automatically and you're like, oh my God. And you open the card and you're like, my dad, and you start crying. And you're like, oh my God. And you get on the camera, right? And then afterwards, you're like, oh shit, my God, we forgot. We didn't tell him. We didn't get the videographer. And then I'm walking in like as these are drying the tears off, like, oh my God, you missed it, man. It's like I'm there 30 minutes freaking early. Right? It is what it is. I had to go. It is what it is. I missed it. I mean, it's not my fault. It's not like, I mean, I can't be everywhere all day nonstop. But the embracing of that, I had better work. I was more enthusiastic. I was happier. Sure, I missed things from time to time, but I did my best not to. If something was really important, I made it clear to whatever and whoever, and I did my best to get it. But I didn't get discouraged and disappointed if I didn't. It's not that it didn't. I'm like, oh, that sucks. But it mean I just pivoted somewhere else. And I did the best I could with what I had, with the best skills that I had. And that made all the difference in the world. And now I had this edge in my selling that wasn't, I'm creating these cookie cutter videos. There's other videographers probably like me who are sitting there and they're going, well, let's get my shot list. I've got my, 1 through 40 shots that I have to get, right? To me, that's like, well, then what's the point? Like, I mean, I get it, but like now everybody's video is just the exact same replicate. You just plug in a different face. I mean, that's fine. But like I was using unique songs. Every video had its unique way I kind of edited it and created it, and people saw it. And so I was able to shift my perspective and others to go, yeah, that makes sense. And I did better. I had more fun. I feel like I did make better videos. My clients were happier and I made more money. But that same situation happening to somebody else that they deeply wanted to control the situation might have not shifted to that optimistic point of view and perspective that shifted into something that was really powerful. But the same thing happening. It was still weddings. Same thing. I just was able to see it. I was able to control my thoughts about it and then shift how I talked about it, how I thought about it. And then I had more fun. I was more fulfilled. People were happier and I made more money. Other people could have got decimated in the same situation. There's local businesses here that are out of business. And a lot of them got put out at times because of when the big C hit in 2020, right? And so what happened there? Well, some people were willing to make adjustments and make pivots and do things. And others were like, well, they told me not to do this. So that's that. And they just give up. And I just want to help people in the biggest way possible not give up, but look at what's worth fighting for. I still at the time loved filming the wedding videos. So giving up didn't feel like an option. It just felt like what I'm doing is not working. Let me make a shift. Let me think about this different, because what I'm doing is not working in the sense that I'm making videos, but I feel horrible, right? So how do I not feel horrible? So my work on these videos and the work I do every day with people is to how make you not feel horrible in the situation that you're in. Because again, some people have a lot of money and feel horrible. Some people have no money and feel horrible. Some people have a lot of money and feel great. Some people have a lot of money and feel horrible. So it's not the money or the not money that is making these people not feel horrible. It's not like everybody on earth who doesn't have a lot of money and is having a hard time paying their bills is just depressed and feeling horrible. That's just not true, right? And it's not like everybody who's killing it and has tons of money is feeling like on top of the world. Again, I know people who have a lot of money and money's flowing in, and the responsibility and the weight of keeping what they have is so high that there's more stress than when they didn't need as much. So now we have to navigate the stress that they're feeling because they have so much they don't want to lose now. When they didn't care about losing what they had, they were unstoppable because they were only focused on forward and gaining and winning, versus when you have all these things you love, you're focused on maintaining and keeping and not losing. And maintaining and keeping and not losing is not an energy that has people obtain and do more and grow and not lose, right? You can't guarantee that you, like, look, think of all this as like a radio station, okay? Your mind. You can hit the auto-tune thing and the thing just starts finding the stations that work, and it'll stop. Now, if all you did every day is just hit that, but you care about what you listen to or you like certain things, then sometimes it might hit, if it's like Russian roulette on the radio, sometimes you might hit a station. They're like, oh my God, this is great. I love this kind of music, right? And then other days you're like, this sucks. And you sit here and like, I don't like this music. But you choose to not hit and intentionally go to the stations you like. You just keep hitting the button that lets it auto pick the stations, right? Now, you might have entire stations you dislike, right? And you might have entire stations that you like, but do you really love every single song that comes on that station, even though it has similar types of music that you like? Do you love every song equally? Or are there certain songs you like a lot more than others? And so think about that with your mind. If we start to tune on purpose to certain stations, we start to pause, reflect, and course correct. The reality is that we'll hit more things we like than we don't. If we're tuned to stations we don't like, we'll hit more things we don't like than we do. So neither guarantee 100% success rate necessarily. If you're on a station that has music you like, you'll have more than you like than you don't. But the reality is you're not going to necessarily have a 100% hit rate. But if you tune to a station that's negative, it doesn't mean everything's negative. You probably have some positivity in your life from time to time. It might be less than it is more. And so the goal is to recognize that we can intentionally get out of the autopilot running of habitual patterns. That's like the auto tuning of the things where you're like, some days are great, some days suck, but I don't really know how to have good days. I don't know how, just bad days. There's more bad days and you start to find these patterns. And so if you can wake up and go, you can tune that station to what you want, but the auto tune may still take control for a while. I mean, for me, full transparency, some of the biggest things for me is like, I've done so much. I've attempted so many things. I've held local events. I've had success. I've traveled. I've made money. I've spent a lot of money. Like I've done all these different things. I'm no longer an 18-year-old kid who's just like, I just got out of school. I can't wait. This is so exciting. Oh my God, I got some friends and we're making videos. I just got $250 and we worked 8 hours for 2 days, between three of us. This is great. Like, and I'm genuinely serious. Like I would go do a project for $200 and do it with a couple buddies and like, no complaints. We had a blast. Right. And so there's something that you do today that 2 or 5 or 8 years ago, like today you hate it. And 10 years ago, you loved it. The same thing. And you may not be able to infuse that love back in. I don't know. This is a whole other thing, but like the relationship I have with my wife, I honestly never thought for the longest time, I did actually a version of a video like this, but I never thought that what I have with her, I would ever get, because there's that aspect where you have that honeymoon phase and you have something you're excited about and you don't think you can get the joy back in it. Like once that's lost, once that honeymoon phase that people say is over, then it's just whatever. And after everything that happened between her and other people that I dated and everything else, I was just very about relationships. And I just was very jaded and did not think that things, one, going into any new relationship, I was still jaded. And then when I went back, got with my wife, I just, it was better than before, but like, it was never like you meet that new person. And then it did, and it became that. And that's what happened when I shifted with the wedding video mentality. And I can see over and over again, when I show up different, the world shows up different. And so I'm constantly questioning my own thoughts, because I don't just have perfect, amazing thoughts that make me happy-go-lucky, rainbows and butterflies and unicorns 24/7, 365. Even though I default to being an overall optimistic person, things still creep in. Even as I'm just learning things from people to help somebody else, there can be some negativity in there. And negative isn't bad. Negative is going to happen, but negative is a perspective at times. Negative isn't a fact. Like most things are neutral until we give it meaning. Think about that. Most things are neutral until we give it meaning. Our brain, by default, gives most things meaning. And that default is either neutral, positive, or negative. Meaning neutral, it doesn't even register. You just go on with your life. It does nothing, right? That same event happening to somebody else has them like, they can't move. They go into freeze mode and like their body causes enormous amounts of pain. I've seen this in people I know, where their body reacts, the mind-body connection. They go into a scenario that would excite somebody else, and it causes so much physical pain that they can't move. So everybody to every situation is going to have different reactions. And to the degree that you really want something that right now isn't a great reaction, it will take you time, energy, and effort to be able to shift that from not being a problem to being a problem, or from being a problem to not being a problem. And anyways, who's on here? How many people? I can't quite see. I can see the things. Ruth, thank you. I appreciate the shout out. Any other comments? I'm on live right now. This is live. So if you're hearing me and you hear my words saying it is live right now, I mean, granted, it's 9:57 a.m. Monday, May 27th. So if you're watching it outside of Monday, May 27th, 9:57, then it is no longer live. But at the moment of recording this, if you were hearing it at that time, I am on live. And if you have any questions or thoughts or anything, drop it in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe. And then, if you want my support, jumpstartyourlife.net. I keep putting this up. We'll see if this is one of those aspects. I mean, I have clients that work in a particular way with me that I love working. But essentially, you can send me your story, send me an audio. If there's something that has resonated today and you're struggling with it and you want to jumpstart, you want some clarity, you want some perspective shifts, because here's the reality. If you tend to be pessimistic, negative, and the things you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel scenario, it's harder for self initially to flip. If you're automatically negative, it's hard to catch it, and then it's hard to flip it to a positive. That's what I'm doing all day, every day. People share stories with me. I hear them. I say, when I hear you, I can help you. So I hear stories. I hear the limiting language, the limiting beliefs, the negativity, the blind spots, the different things. I help call them out. When they call them to your attention, now you'll hear them. Now you'll see them. Now you'll be able to figure them out when they happen yourself. And I'll help you see them differently, share about them differently, so that rather than them being something that you automatically stay like a stream of consciousness, you're not even aware of the certain thoughts that are negatively holding you back. You will now be able to start to have those be activated. We're like, oh my gosh, yes, I am saying that. And that is not helping me. It's not serving me. So you can go there. Super easy to get started. People call me their therapist, their counselor, their mentor, their coach. I just go by Mind Mechanic right now. Combination of all these things. I keep playing around with where's my freshly squeezed lemonade versus yellow lemon water, because people are getting schmoozed over by a bunch of people left and right who are selling not even lemonade, but they're acting like it is. And then when people get in, they're getting confused and stuck and not helped. And so and that's happened to me a lot. I was untainted by the outside world a lot growing my video production company, but honestly, growing my coaching company, creating content like this, showing up, recording videos, I had so many what's right and what's wrong. I'm running some ads right now. And the guy running the ads, there's a particular lady that I love her overall formula, but she's very kind of rigid, like 80-90% in the rigid aspect, I would say. And even my ad guy who has studied this was very rigid in how he thought I needed to structure the videos and needed to speak and say certain things. And so right now he's like shocked because I'm not fully following the rules and my videos are performing pretty solidly. Now, the call to action and maybe the actual, what the offer isn't hitting right now, but the video is, which would mean don't change how I'm recording yet. Don't be that I gotta be a very certain way. Like, people have never liked that about me. I just have to keep showing up. And when I do, it wins. There's tweaks and adjustments, but I'm never probably going to be, never say never though, with an asterisk, but I'm probably never going to be the guy who's going to prepare these videos for days and weeks and script it out and think about it and rethink about it. That's not me. And the greatest things I've succeeded in life is when I've embraced that aspect. I make adjustments and tweaks, but overall to who I naturally am, not completely having me be something that I'm not and I don't really desire to be. So I can embrace who I am and make pivots and adjustments based on that, then becoming something I have no desire to be. I think people can learn anything if they desire to. It's when you're forced to that's the problem. So people being forced to do things they don't want to do, they don't like to do, doesn't feel resonant, it doesn't match, they're not aligned with, they will lose. And there's been so much that hasn't resonated with me, but I felt I have to do it. And then what happens? I don't do it, which means even if it would be better than doing the alternative, I don't get any results, because if I don't show up on here, no one gets impacted. No one gets helped, right? Because if I think I have to show up a particular way, but doing it that particular way is not desirable, I won't do it. And so there's things right now that you're stuck on that aren't desirable, and you don't know what the more desirable way. You don't know what to test. You don't know what to do. And maybe you're tired. Maybe you're exhausted. So anyway, send me a message if you've enjoyed this. I'll be back. I've realized I'm not committed to, just little pivots for me. I'm very fluid person. I've always been very fluid in my emotions and my feelings. I am more positive, more optimistic than I'm not. Like, there's so much that's so good. But one thing I love is freedom. And anytime I try to put rules and regulations that I need to show up here at a particular time every day, or I need to show up every day or any of that, like, it doesn't, I don't like it. I didn't become an entrepreneur so I could rigidly live my life in very particular parameters really strictly. And that's one of the beauties of being self-employed and an entrepreneur is I can set my own rules and I'm not told what to do. And so otherwise I just go get a job. So for me, I want to show up more than I don't. And that's the biggest thing for me. I'm probably going to show up more than I don't, but I'm not committing to 7 days a week or 5 days a week or 3 days a week or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or this and that at that time. I've never lived my life and the things I've succeeded at. I didn't have to live my life with that kind of rigidity. And when I do, I tend to get stuck and I don't take any action. And I know damn well that if I don't take action, I don't get great results. And when I take action, even if I'm doing things weird and strange to the outside world, I get a lot better results than if I'm sitting around overthinking and staring at the wall. And so my goal is to help you not sit around, overthink and stare at the wall, because everything that's happening in our world, getting deep down the ditch of the negative and the dark and the depressing won't serve you to help you not be in that, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And so we can either focus on, what is happening and see it through a lens of negativity, or we can focus on what's happening and see it through a lens of positivity. Which are you going to do? If you want help and support, reach out. I'm here to help. So I take great pride in being able to do that. That's actually my freaking superpower. I can get on here and preach and teach and ramble off for God knows how long, but like, I love when I have somebody that I get to hear and I get to interact with. It's my absolute favorite thing to do. So if you find value out of these, you keep coming back. YouTube says people keep coming back. So if you are, say hello, send me a message, leave a comment, leave a like, and I'm grateful. So enjoy the rest of your day. And I believe there is light. I always believe there's light. There's light everywhere. Just sometimes we're sometimes it's just a little darker. But we just got to know where the switch is. When we find it, there's light. So rock and roll, my friends. Talk to you soon. Have a great day.